Today we're taking a look at a new hero shooter from NetEase, Marvel Rivals. Let's address the first thing people are going to talk about with this game. Will it be an Overwatch killer? For me, I don't subscribe to that mentality that every time a new game is released in the same genre as another game, it becomes a killer or a one-to-one competitor. And knowing how some really bad takes that some Overwatch players have, I really don't want that to be the case either. While Marvel Rivals is a hero shooter, and there are similar abilities, there isn't any hero that plays exactly the same from one game to the next. I have to bring up former Blizzard president Mike Ybarra and his now deleted tweet about comparing Black Widow to Widowmaker. First off, Black Widow has been an existing character since 1964, and when we're talking about in-game abilities, Black Widow has a lot more going for her for close-range combat than Widowmaker does. It's far from a simple reskin. While Overwatch is worth playing from time to time and could be making a comeback with positive changes that shifts the meta, I have to say Marvel Rivals is a very pleasant surprise and is far more competent than I imagined it would ever be. It's one of those few times where at the moment I can say this game was built by devs who knew what kind of game they were making. It doesn't mean the game is perfect, it doesn't mean the devs will always make the best decisions. However, it is a very promising start for a game that I was willing to write off as a chaotic, unbalanced beat-em-up style hero shooter. It's one of those cases where I'm glad I was wrong. Let's hope Blizzard is taking notes. And if you want to keep up with me being wrong or right and discussing video games, give this video a like and consider subscribing. Speaking of chaos and character kits, it's too early for me to really tell which characters are really overpowered. That doesn't mean there aren't any. For me, it can be jarring to fight against Magic or Iron Fist. Scarlet Witch can also be a pain to fight against if you're not ready for it. And as far as tanks or Vanguard class goes, Thor has been a pain to deal with. He's not too bad to fight against, but with all of his abilities giving him armor, he rarely dies if there's a support character nearby. It really feels like it's going to take more than one duelist to take out Thor in most cases. And though I haven't played a game against him yet, I am scared to run into a player who knows how to use Black Panther's kit. Like I had mentioned before in my previous point, all of these characters play very differently from Overwatch. There are some abilities like a grappling hook, a teleport ability, or a revive ability, and even a hovering ability that some characters have, but it works in a different way, and sometimes that may be on a character you don't really want to play. For instance, there is a revive ability similar to Mercy, but it's tied to Rocket and works in a different way. And not only that, but Rocket, as you would imagine, also plays very differently than Mercy. Speaking of which, the character classes are named differently. You have Vanguard, which are your tank style characters, Duelists, which are your DPS, and Strategists, who double as both your support healer and have damage buffs or damage resist abilities. They can be a little more involved than just simply healing your team, firing a primary weapon, and occasionally using your other ability. There are plenty of details that make Rivals different, but a big one that I keep forgetting is that Rivals is a third-person game, whereas Overwatch is first-person. This is another praise to Rivals, as I tend to stay away from third-person multiplayer games, but with the level design and how the game plays out, that doesn't really bother me here. So if you're staying away from the game just because it's third-person, I highly recommend you reconsider and try it out anyways. While we are on that topic, one thing Rival does very differently from Overwatch is make you use your abilities. For instance, if you play Ashe, you could go all game without using her dynamite or even her shotgun. I don't recommend it, but you could do that and still be useful to your team. You can find yourself in similar situations with characters like Soldier 76 or Sojourn, never using their secondary fire, and lower ranked Lucio players only using speed boost to get from spawn to objective instead of using it in team fights and so on. While that isn't how these characters were meant to be played, you can still play the game and possibly even win depending on your matchmaking. In Marvel Rivals, most of these characters rely a lot on their abilities, to the point where they can be near useless without them. As I mentioned with Black Panther, all of his abilities have to do with dashing and slashing. You time them right and you always have a button to press. Not only that, but the game feels like it encourages you to use them as often as possible, as many of these abilities have a 3 to 8 second cooldown. There are some abilities like Doctor Strange's teleport that have a long cooldown time, but that doesn't apply to every character. Because of this mindset of letting you be the hero and use abilities, there's never a dull moment in Rivals. It can feel overwhelming and can be a lot to keep track of. But if you're a new player, you should end up in friendlier lobbies that can give you that chance to absorb what's going on. This is just the curse of any hero shooter, but it's going to appear like a bigger problem than what it really is here in Marvel Rivals. Having low cooldown abilities is also going to make some characters appear more broken than others, or have a certain combination of abilities that are meant to be used in a sequence, while others are meant more for mid to long range combat and have less overall synergy with their own abilities. It doesn't make them any weaker for their role, just less versatile in team fights. Again, this game is in its early stages, so figuring out what is hard meta and what needs to change isn't going to be as apparent to me as of right now. Even with how powerful some characters tend to be, there always seems to be something you can do to make their job just a little harder. Mantis, for instance, has a sleep bomb with a very small AoE that can put a stop to enemies diving in on you. And Loki has an ability to place clones of himself on the map, which can be a great way to confuse the enemy and make them waste their time. I'm sure there are other examples that may be more effective than these, but you get the picture. One thing that can potentially break the game are team-ups. These are a combination of characters that when on the same team, can provide an extra boost to each affected character. When Scarlet Witch and Magneto are on the same team, Magneto's greatsword can now fire projectiles at enemies. Some of these team-ups can range from being very useful with increasing health and adding new abilities, to a simple reference such as the Fastball Special with Hulk and Wolverine, or Groot allowing Rocket and Jeff the Landshark to ride on his shoulder. If you're well versed with the comics, you might be able to guess what team-ups are available in the game right now, but a quick Google search can get you those answers as well, just in case you're like me and don't know all the lore. I'm sure some of these team-ups are going to be very valuable for ranked play, if not now then sometime later. But for now, in unranked, it doesn't appear to be the end-all be-all to win or lose the game. Team-ups as a concept sounds very scary if they involve some hard meta characters. However, I also look on the bright side, where it can also do the opposite, and allow lesser player characters to still be viable and have teams play around each other for more reasons than simply, this is the meta character right now. Funny thing is, these team-up abilities were also kind of teased with Overwatch 2's original vision in their trailers, with Reinhardt and Brigitte pairing their shields together. Unfortunately, as we know, that never came to pass in the official builds of the game. I'm not going to say too much about the maps at this moment. I think the gameplay itself is a lot of fun, and the maps don't really get in the way of that. One thing that is unique is that some parts of the maps are destructible. Not only that, but you can also see that the map is very dynamic and has a lot of atmosphere by the things that are moving around the map and in the background. Some high ground can be destroyed like in the Tokyo map, and though it's not a large chance, it can make fighting in certain areas easier or harder. There is some high ground here and there, and with some characters it can be difficult to get to the second floor without going around a long way. It'll be interesting to see how this will affect gameplay in the long term. I would like to see every character get a mantle or a vault ability, which right now not all of them do, whenever they're near a ledge. Some characters just don't have any viable movement abilities whatsoever that allow them to get airtime. Being able to hop to a ledge would feel like a nice little quality of life change that can make it easier to move around the map without having to backtrack to the stairs every time. Hopefully, if nothing else, this video at least encourages you to give Marvel Rivals a shot. The gameplay is unique, and I feel it fits a more hectic but still fun blend of characters and abilities. If you were to ask me which one to play, I would be leaning more towards Rivals at this point. Overwatch may be a better pick if you want a relatively slower and more conventional style of gameplay that you could find in a hero shooter. That is entirely up to the kind of characters you play. Overwatch has been able to stick around and keep bringing back players over time. And there are a few characters that I would like to revisit and keep playing, primarily Junkrat. And even though these two games don't play exactly the same, there's a lot Blizzard can learn from Rivals, such as a battle pass that never expires, and other potential balance changes and abilities that could benefit Overwatch. Rivals, on the other hand, is a lot more chaotic, it's a lot faster paced, it's a lot more engaging, and it makes you a part of the action more often, regardless which character you choose. Each of these games have something unique to offer, and I do think both of them are worth playing. You can call it a recency bias, but I'm having fun with how Rivals handles right now, more than Overwatch. I do think a big part of that is the faster pace the game has, and the players are still figuring out and learning the game, so I'm not getting punished as often as I could be, or playing against characters or teams that have countless hours in the game. And the recent patch notes also aren't really helping me to get back in Overwatch. Let me know what your experience has been with Marvel Rivals. Do you think it's outright better than Overwatch, or is the game too chaotic for your taste? Let me know and let's discuss it in the comments below. Thank you for getting this far. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and consider subscribing and check out my other videos on the channel. Until then, I am Mr. Rain, and I'll see you next time.